No mai, haere mai. Welcome to the SPADA Masterclass series. Today's session is the mentor-mentee relationship, which I think is, a good discussion to be having at the moment. My name's Ness Simons. I do comms and events on behalf of SPADA, which is the Screen Producers Guild. These sessions are one of the favourite parts of my job. We have a really good panel here to share their experiences of mentoring. So the session, we're going to give you a little bit of an overview of some of the opportunities for mentoring that are in the sector. We're going to hear about our panelists' experience on both sides of the mentoring relationship. We'll also have a bit of time at the end for questions, so feel free to pop your questions into the chat or message them to me. Hosting today's discussion, we have the fabulous Karin Williams, who started out as a journalist and is a producer, director and writer. Karin's latest film, Burning of the Gods, has just screened at the New Zealand International Film Festival. And her work has earned dozens of honours, including 5 regional Emmys, and screened at festivals around the world. Karin is a former development exec at the New Zealand Film Commission, and she's really committed to supporting diverse voices and talent. She's been a mentor and an executive producer on a number of projects like SIS, the series. So Karin, I feel like you're super well placed to host our discussion today. And with that in mind, I'm going to hand it over to you to continue. Welcome, Karin.
Thank you, Ness. Kia ora na koutou katoa. Welcome to all of our panelists, and welcome to all of the folks, attendees out there in webinar land. Thanks so much for spending your Thursday afternoon with us. And I'm excited about this panel because I think mentoring has been a critical part of my life. I've had mentors who have showed me the ropes back in the day. And I also like to think I've been the auntie to some up-and-comers in the film industry. So it's an important and valuable part of what we do. I would like to, first of all, introduce our panelists. And what we're going to do is start off with, we've got teams of mentors and mentees. So we have Sharlene, George and Rickylee Russell, along with Nick Ward and Rosie Howells. So I'm going to give you a little background, first of all, on Shar and Rickylee, and then I'm going to get you guys to introduce yourselves. So Sharlene, I have had the pleasure of working with. I think of her as a producer ninja, because Shar just gets stuff done and appears out of nowhere and boom, stuff is made. She's a screen producer and the founding member of The Sweet Shop, which is a global production company with 8 offices around the world. And most recently, Shar has got into long-form production, yay, with her partner, Gal Greenspan of Green Productions, and they've come together to form Sweet Shop and Green. And their combined focus is to take stories from Indigenous communities and Pacific communities to global audiences. Shar is a Cook Islander, yay, Cook Islanders, and born in New Zealand. And for Shar, telling Indigenous stories is a really important part of her focus and supporting Pacific talent. She, along with 3 other Pacific-led production companies, initiated the new Pacific Creators Accelerator program, which is supporting people like Joshi out there, who is one of our participants, one of our attendees. Rickylee, some of you may recognise from the screen as an actor, most recently in This Is Piki and Waka Warriors. But some of you are going, gee, she looks familiar. And she's all grown up now, but once upon a time, she was the famous Chardonnay in Boy. And so on stage, Rickylee has toured with Hawaii Haka Theatre Company, has facilitated and performed haka workshops throughout Canada. And then luckily for us, in the last couple of years, Ricky has shifted behind the scenes as a producer, joining Sweet Shop in 2019. And Ricky is passionate about First Nations projects, and particularly ensuring that the appropriate voices are at the table when it comes to safeguarding culture and cultural stories. So I'd like to start out by asking Shar and Ricky, how did you guys meet? And how would you characterize your relationship? I was going to say in one word, but you're all writers and producers and actors, so you can't say anything in one word.
No.
So how did you guys meet? And talk to us about the nature of the relationship.
Okay, cool. O, e te tautai me kia koroa kia koe moto tīmata tō kōrero tīmatanga, and to Ness for inviting us. I te tau tōku māma he uri tēnei no Ngāti Raukawa, I te tau tōku pāpā he uri tēnei no Ngāti Kainganau. Yeah, so how we met, it was quite a organic process. It wasn't a mentorship program per se. It was more of a whānau kind of connection in a way. I worked with Fred Veneta, a renowned DOP in the industry, and he had a conversation with me, and I had expressed a bit of interest into getting into production mahi. And he had identified that there was a bit of space that needed to be filled with more Wahine Māori Pasifika producers in the space. So that was really cool kōrero. And then he introduced me to Sharlene not too much longer, and we just started. We met. And Sharlene asked me what I wanted to do, what were my interests.
But more importantly, I'd actually heard something about Rickylee, and it was the fact that she wanted to be a producer, but also I guess sorry, that's my dog barking in the background, is how determined she was to be a producer was quite evident, and the fact that she took upon herself to take Fred's advice, but she really pushed really hard to sort of come and join us at the company. So so I thought, well, if Fred believes in her, let's try it. And so we just started working together in 2019. And then obviously we started with some more formal arrangements with Te Puni Kōkiri, who helped fund us for the first year of her what they called a cadetship. So it wasn't sort of like a film industry mentorship. It was through Te Puni Kōkiri, and what they did is at that particular stage, they helped to fund Māori. It was apprenticeships really more than anything, and it was sort of for other fields other than film, but they were really great and supported us in that. So that's how we came together.
And how would you guys characterize the relationship? Do you think of yourself as mentor and mentee, or how do you work together?
I think it's actually that's a different sort of answer really to every day. I will be really honest that it started off as me obviously trying to train Rickylee to be a producer, but she's actually changed our company quite dramatically. So it's been a real dual kind of relationship. I've been from commercials for a very long time. I have been working in a space that doesn't necessarily include Māori and Pacific. And so I was really keen. In 2017 actually was when we started to go into film and television. And what I was keen about it was to grow our Māori and Pacific slate. And with Rickylee, we're actually 100% Māori and Pacific now, aren't we?
Yeah, now we are.
We thought it was 90% at one stage. But it's only been able to grow into this space with Ricky's knowledge and her ability to help our company grow into this space with tikanga and everything really. So I think it's actually been a very much a dual kind of beneficial period for both of us.
Yeah, and I guess I was just very lucky that I managed to meet someone who I absolutely look up to, and boss bitch, but just on a professional level, as well as just as a human being, I just have so much respect for Shar and everything that she does, not just for me, but anyone that comes into her workspace in a personal and professional kind of sense. just top-notch gal. It's been a really enjoyable process. Coming into Sweetshop was quite a new environment for me, especially coming from kura, where that was my everyday sort of environment. Being a performing artist was always in kind of my cultural spaces, and so stepping into, I did a 2-month placement with Sweetshop, the commercial side first, to see if things would, work well or not, and maybe we'd decide after that 2-month time frame. And then after the 2 months, I just said, well, I'm like, I'm really enjoying my time. Sharlene said, well, it's working out for me. Do you want to stay with us? And I was like, hell yeah. She hasn't been able to get rid of me since
3 years now. 3 years, which is great. It's amazing.
It's 3 years. And I guess just the combination of Sharlene and I with the Pasifika side as well as the Taha Māori, the combination of the two of us really attracted the types of projects that we are working on now, which are, like we said earlier, is 100% kaupapa Māori or Pasifika pretty much, which is super cool. All of the talents that we're working with are amazing. I think I would just, key point would be to mention is when you are valued in your space, you're in your mahi environment, you will always go over and beyond expectations because of that, reciprocal relationship and value. It's always been a very two-way street with us. I've learned so much from Sharlene, and I'm in lots of different ways.
And I think that's actually a really good point, because quite often in mentor-mentee relationships, and this might be historical, I don't think it's necessarily now, but sometimes it can be looked at as a free kind of assistant as well, in some industries. It's like, can you, but it actually can't be like that. It's got to be, it's got to be a two-way street. And I think that gone are the days where you're using your mentee to go and make your coffee and do all the little, get your dry cleaning and stuff. And you get so much more out of it if it is a reciprocal relationship. And I've learned an enormous amount from Rickylee, and she's really helped our slate develop into something that I'm really proud of, and that I want to continue to make. So she's led our company in a direction that I never thought would actually happen. There we go.
Wow. So I think this is really fascinating what you're saying about the two-way street and how the mentorship works both ways. And it does raise this issue of or the model of tuakana taina in Māori and Pacific communities, which I'd like to come back to, about how that sort of elder and younger sibling relationship works. But let's go introduce our other panelists now. We have Nick and Rosie. Nick's a screenwriter. Lots of you will know Nick. He's been around for a while and has done lots of amazing productions, most recently Wellington Paranormal, Under the Vines. And I've just discovered that he's working on your Bird's Eye View for Sweetshop and Greenshaw. Yes. So it's all a bit incestuous, really, isn't it? With everybody else. So Nick's been working in the screen industry for more than 20 years, films, radio, TV, and the occasional viral post about wayward printers. Currently juggling projects for local and international audiences and busy pitching to some big players in the industry across the globe. That's interesting, Nick. I don't know if we'll have time to get into that, but Nick is a champion of emerging writers and loves to share what he's learned over his career, passionate about supporting talented writers to develop their skills, their stories, and their sense of humour. Rosie is an actor, writer, and director, and a founding member of the all-women Discharge comedy troupe, who are known for pushing the limits in their sketch comedy. as part of the 48 Hours Team Tasteful Side Boob. Rosie won the National Awards for Best Performer in 2021 and Best Solo Duo entry in 2020, which is quite an achievement because 48 hours are very competitive these days. Rosie's currently working on the Wellington Paranormal series and Yap Tribe, and a forthcoming series, Conspiracy series for RNZ, and Little Apocalypse for TVNZ Hey Hey. So very busy, developing 2 feature film scripts, and is deeply committed to ensuring women and gender diverse humans have a presence and are properly represented and celebrated in comedy. So Rosie and Nick, let's have a chat with you guys about how you met and how you would characterize your relationship.
We met because the first time I met Rosie got brought on to work on Wellington Paranormal, and we were doing our final season, and there had been a lot of established writers there. We had a lot of writers come and go, and so we were the group was quite tight. And Rosie came in as a new writer into that, and I'd seen some of the work she'd done to get onto that table, and it was really funny, like really funny. And then she walked in the room, and I thought, that's a tough room to walk into. And Rosie just owned it. She walked in there, and she was funny, and and I tell you what, it's a good thing if you ever get onto a story table. Open your mouth. Don't be a wallflower. Come in. We don't mind. You know, the louder and oversharing. We love that. We love that. That's all part of the writer's room, writer's table.
I think it's good for comedy tables as well.
It's good for all tables.
Yeah,
you know.
it's good for all tables. Yeah, you're right.
Every table should be. Yeah. Perhaps not at a wake, but that's the time when you come in and Rosie, and I thought, here's someone interesting. And then when the mentorship program through the New Zealand Film Commission came through, they put me with writers, and Rosie's name was a name that put forward, and I thought, that's someone I could bear spending some more time with, but also someone who I had some experience of, and I knew I could work with, and hoped that maybe I could do something with, take that, because she's pretty advanced as a writer to begin with. So that was a nice bit of serendipity there. Yeah. So that's how I met Rosie. It's not a great story for the ages. We met each other across a writer's table, and then I got the chance to work with her as a mentor, and of course I jumped at that chance. Is that your remembering of it, Rosie?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was great. You were like the most established writer on the team, and I was the baby, and you were, so sensitive to that situation. I thought you made such a big effort to make me feel welcome and comfortable, and laughed at all my jokes. That was it. And then I applied for the Film Commission mentorship, and I didn't know I'd be matched with Nick. So it was just a really happy instant that we could keep the party going.
We did, and we did keep the party going, man.
And the party's still going, man. It never stopping.
Yeah, here we are, man.
And how would you characterize, I mean, I guess we could characterize the relationship. Clearly you guys like each other's company, and there's a lot of laughing and joking going on. But what would you say about the relationship?
Well, it's an interesting one, because one of the best things about the mentorship program is they don't put any strict rules on you, and results are sort of, you do need to bring up some results, but really right at the beginning, I just said to Rosie, I said, what do you want out of this? What do you want? What do you want to, and that's what I've been doing on this anyway, because it's not about me sitting at a table barking orders at someone else, and we've all been in that situation, where there's someone who's a higher status than another person on whatever capacity in this industry. It's no good if you bark orders at someone else or tell them, this is the way you do it. This is the way you do it. Find that middle ground and find what they want. And especially in the mentorship program, I'm not the boss. Rosie has to be the boss, because she's the one that needs the results, Yeah,
I think that, you're totally right, Nick, with that. There's I think the relationship is a combination of support and a technical sense that we're both screenwriters and we're interested in the same genres. But yeah, a mix of technical and emotional support. Just because it is a big move for an emerging filmmaker, to get into this industry. And, it is nice to have someone saying, like, you're doing the right thing, you're doing good, kid. And I think that, that's the combination of like technical support and just like emotional support, I think. I call you my fun uncle, my fun screenwriter uncle.
Funkle.
Fun.
Yeah. No, I think well, when you talk about, because in terms of writing, because this is what I'm a writer, and I was having to talk to someone about that the other day. I've specialized in writing. I do a bit of producing now and then, but I'm not a writer director. I'm concerned with what happens on the page, and I'm concerned with writers. And we've got a huge guild, but we tend to not really share information with each other, writers, either because we don't see each other because we're all sitting at home alone in front of the computer crying. Or we don't want to share the precious information we have. I don't want to give it to the young people because they'll come and take my job away from me. But this is what it has to be. We have to share. And I think Hemingway says about writing, he says it's really easy. You just sit down at a typewriter and open a vein. And whether you're writing comedy or whether you're writing drama, there's a real emotional aspect to writing, and it's not just technical. It's about tapping into yourself,
Yeah.
So Nick, you talked about not barking orders at somebody and wanting to find out what it was that Rosie wanted to get out of this program. So Rosie, I'll ask you, why did you want to be mentored, and why did you apply for this mentorship? What were you hoping to get out of it?
I actually wanted to try doing something really different. So I started writing when I was about 18, 19. So I've been writing for about 10 years. I started writing comedy sketches and plays, and then in my mid-20s, I started writing films, and I had been writing a lot of, wackadoodle kind of outrageous comedy with young women. And I had been working on my film. I had some EDF, early development funding. I'd been working on my film, The Pissy Tit Street Gang, which you might be surprised to hear is, a film with young women being outrageous. And I really wanted to try something different. And I wanted to do something a bit slower. And I wanted to have a different kind of protagonist. So I thought this would be a great opportunity for a mentorship, because it'll be a brand new kind of way of writing for me. So it's the perfect time for me to just be all ears, or, more ears than I had been on the same thing I'd been doing for a long time. So I really wanted to hear a new way of working and a new way of doing things. So that's why that project was the right time for a mentorship.
So for you, it was about shifting out of what you've been doing into a new thing and having that guidance from somebody who was actually doing it.
And just getting out of my comfort zone and just getting a whole bunch of new ideas. And also in terms of the timing of my own career, I had been kind of doing my own thing for a few years, really underground. And then I guess in the last kind of 18 months, 2 years, I've started getting paid to write, which is kind of incredible. I'm like, whoa, it's great. Thanks, guys. But Wellington Paranormal and some Hey shows and film commission stuff. And so I was kind of entering a new stage of my career, and creatively that could be a challenge, but emotionally it was a bit of a challenge as well. So it was nice to link up with Nick at this time in my career. It was like, when you're like pushing a little snowball and you're like trying to pack in snow on the snowball, and you're like pushing it, and then suddenly the snowball starts moving a little bit by itself down the hill. I feel like I just just managed to push the snowball a little bit and it started moving. And then I was like, oh, shoot, I need to talk to someone about how the snowball can keep moving. Yeah, if that analogy makes any sense.
The horror in that story was I was in the way of that snowball. Like two arms, feet sticking out of it as it rolled. No, it was great to be caught up in that with you, Rosie, because one of the really good things about you, and I've mentored lots of people before. One of the great things about our relationship was Rosie listened, which was I know it sounds crazy, but and we worked together. And it wasn't, we weren't looking at getting a completed script. We really took scenes from Rosie's project and interrogated them and made them be more than just, sorry, Rosie, more than just comedy sketches, to make them something that had a heart in them. And it's great because there was a heart there, but I think it was too easy for you, Rosie, wasn't it, to go for the gag? And
yeah, I love a gag. Love a gag.
And this is the thing, terrible thing. I love a gag as well. I always take the laugh. I'm cheap like that, but but it was really good to then burrow down into it. And contrary to popular belief, comedy is really hard, and comedy is also real good comedy should be full of heart. And that's what Rosie's work was getting towards. And together, she didn't do this from me telling her how to do it. We really did it together, which was great.
Sorry, go on, Rosie.
Oh, I was just going to say that, I think one of the reasons why Nick and I have always had such a successful mentorship relationship ever since paranormal is also that we have such compatible personalities. And compatible tastes, which I think is quite important for writer mentorships. So he really understood who I was as a writer and what my strengths were and maybe the things we could work on. Because I mean, everybody says, there's so many jokes here. There's a lot of gags, I think, especially coming from sketch comedy. And he could just immediately knew what kind of writer I was and what was going to be really helpful for me. Yeah, I feel like we always were on the same page.
Yeah. And I've mentored a lot of different people. I've mentored Ines, and I'm mentoring Mickey Magasiva at the moment, and they all want something different from the process, And so that's the thing about when you're mentoring someone, don't just come in with the cookie cutter factory and say, this is what's going to happen. You need to tailor what you're doing to the person you're doing it with.
So for you, Rosie, it's at a point in your career where you're making some changes in what you're doing. I'd also like to ask Rickylee, who clearly you were making some changes in your career, Ricky. What did you want to get out of mentorship? Did you know when you came into this process, beyond just the wanting to learn about producing? What were you looking for in that relationship?
I guess being on the performing side of things for a while, I think my natural interest just started gravitating towards what was going on behind the scenes a lot more. And and the performing arts space, it's you're hustling constantly, and I mean, unless you're on Shortland Street, it's pretty like hot and cold, and so I wanted to find another space, and I quickly had been realizing that it didn't really matter what I did as long as I was telling stories. I was really happy, and I wanted to be in spaces where I could make changes and be part of the decision making tables. And so I didn't know, I actually had no idea what I was getting myself into, but I never do when I jump on things. I never know what I'm doing, and I just have a good crack at it and hope for the best, and put my head down and soak up as much as I can, as quick as I can, to know if, you know, that's the trajectory, the direction that I want to keep going, or if it's not for me, and then jump on another waka. But yeah, so I guess to answer your question, it was one, just kind of really going hard and fast for figuring out if this was a space that supported me, or if this was something that I needed to do to help kind of grow that space if it was open. And yeah, I wanted to be a producer, and at that time, I mean, a couple of years ago, I was like, yeah, that sounds cool. That sounds cool. Yeah, I want to do that. And then yeah, realizing how much mahi really goes into it, I was like, well, that's actually a lot, but I was loving it. And yeah, I think it's helped me grow as a person. Also, coming out of like the rangatahi into real life adulting. Yeah, it's how yeah, assisted in that sort of sense as well. Did I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, so
yeah.
a bit of a leap of faith for you, you know,
Yeah,
kind of knowing what you wanted, but just jump in and give it a go. So let me ask you, Sharlene, why become a mentor? Why did you agree to take Rickylee on? Because in some ways it will be a lot easier not to, right? I mean, it does take some time, energy, thought, and effort. So why mentor?
I guess for me, it was actually meeting Ricky, and I did hear this story about what she had done when she was on a waka, the honui, and someone, I think it was an initiation process where she, as part of the crew, had to eat the beating heart of a live tuna. And I thought that was actually like, she put her whole self into this space, into that space. And to me, it proved, I mean, I know that's a little bit macabre, but it was just kind of, she was willing to do that because that she wanted it really bad. And that was what you were doing. And I knew that she was really determined as a person and that she would put everything into this. And so I was prepared to spend my time mentoring someone that gave 100%, essentially. Because, you know, it's like, there's no point trying to manufacture someone into someone, you know, they've got to really, really want it. And Ricky really wanted it, and Fred believed in her. And so we thought, okay, and also, you know, there's not many female Māori, you know, young female Māori producers. And it's really important. And same with Pacific, you know, I need to put an effort into that as well. It's just, I think it's important that, you know, I've been producing for 28 years and I need to help, you know, I need to help with other people. And Ricky was the first, and the first of many, I hope. So, yeah, I think it's just a chemistry relationship thing as well.
Yeah, it helps if you like each other.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so how was the beating heart of the tuna, Ricky? Did that taste good?
Honestly, it was such a time and space. I don't really remember much. I was just like, I've got to do this. Did it.
It's quite a nuts story. I was really impressed because I would never have done it in a million years.
But it's true though, like big mahi for the mentors side, and like Sharlene had an even bigger job because I literally knew nothing. And well, yeah. I mean, you know, in terms of like being on set and things like that, that was easy as I could, you know, she could put me on set and I'd be, you know, etiquette and just knowing all of those types of things. But I've been, you know, I jumped in commercial space for a couple months, and so went into a range of departments she just put me everywhere to kind of figure out what was my vibe, what I naturally kind of gravitated towards. And then everything from funding applications, meeting new talents, developing scripts, which I actually really, really enjoyed. That's something that I figured out during this process, all the way to production, finding crew, getting that whole process for film and television still quite very different. And a lot of that we were doing it together because Sharlene was coming from commercials, and I'd already been in that space, but from a different sort of way. But I was also able to, introduce Sharlene to people who I already knew, different other producers in our community and other commissioners and things like that. So it was really cool. As much as I was learning from Shar, I feel like, I was able to bring something to the table as well.
Most definitely.
Yeah. So it was, we were kind of, I think, this is another thing that I think is really like cool about Shar is just the, well, there's many things actually. No, it was, is just the, her ability to be able to be like very transparent with me about all different phases of things that I feel wouldn't be possible for lots of different people just because of the way that they're used to working, or a more traditional kind of system. I don't know, but for us, I guess like our relationship first and foremost was like our trust is really important, and it's allowed us to just work really closely pretty much through everything. And I've been like Shar's shadow for the past few years, and it's
but we've actually been learning at the same time, because I have been learning too.
But also, like, you didn't have to, like there's a lot of things where she didn't have to kind of like make sure you come to this meeting with me, like make sure you come to this networking thing, this is really important, like just understanding that the processes and all of those types of things, is a job in itself. And I would say we have the networking thing on lock.
Yeah. We're good at that bit.
Yeah, and as you say, Ricky, she didn't have to, but she did. And I also wanted to ask Nick about that. I mean, Nick, you've mentored a number of people now, and you don't have to. I mean, life might be easier if you weren't, if you were just focusing on the writing or schmoozing the network executives in Los Angeles. So why do you mentor, Nick? Why have you chosen to do this?
Well, I heard that Rosie had eaten the beating heart of a clown, and I wanted to find out if it tasted funny. No, joking. The reason I do it, the reason that I do that, that's a terrific story, by the way. The reason I do it is because we're not we are an island. We're a couple of islands, but we don't. How do you build an industry? By building those around you, when I was coming up, there were very few writers that wanted to help me on that journey, and I eventually met a few, but they were very hard to find. And really, you had to, first of all, I had to convince them that I wasn't insane, which was a tough job. Anyway, so just to get there, and I want to build. Look. There's a lot of support out there for producers. There's a lot of support out there for directors. I mean, it's not much, but there's even less when it comes to building up writers, because the first question a lot of writers will get asked is, "Do you direct as well? Do you produce?" Like, I concentrated just on the writing. That's what I want to do. That's what I believe in. That's what I love, and it's what I seem to be quite good at. And so I just want to share that knowledge, and grow a garden, grow a garden of writers around me. What's that old thing about, if we're all ships rise, if the water rises, we all rise with it. Yeah, that's great. But I want to build up those around me, and I know it sounds really altruistic, but it's not about that. It's about just living in a better environment, a better environment for writers by building each other up. And yeah, I just, and you know what? Here's the other thing. I get a lot from it. And if you'll excuse the profanity, I get a fucking lot from it, because I leave these chats, with someone like Rosie or someone I'm mentoring, and I go, Nick, you should be practicing what you preach and take back what I'm talking about when we're talking about. And I've learned a lot from when Rosie and I were really interrogating the characters. I had to go back to a script that I was working on that was full of gags, and I was going, no, Nick, these are real people in a real world, remember that, and so it's a two-way street. They were talking about it before, I get as much from it as they do. So selfishly, it's part of it as well. I build myself up as much as I build those up around me. But I love talking about writing. I just love it. And I, you know what? I get a lot of reward out of watching other people blossom, and when I read a script that I've helped someone work on and that they've done the work, and I read it and go, this is pretty good. It's great when I read it and it's better than before I started working with them. But if it was worse, I'd feel terrible. But when I read it, go, this is really good. This is really good. Yeah, this is and it's really rewarding. It's really rewarding.
Thanks, Nick. This idea of the two-way street, I wanted to dig in a little bit deeper with you, Shar and Ricky, about this concept of the tuakana teina. In Māori and Pacific culture, we have this idea about the older and younger sibling relationship. Can you unpack that a bit for us and how that might apply to your roles together?
I don't think ours is strictly tuakana teina, is it? It's yeah, I think, and certainly from a Pacific perspective, it's not hierarchical, which that's where I come from, is a hierarchical, but I think that things have changed a bit, and we, as workmates, we socialize together. It's like a family, essentially. Actually, Ricky did live with me for the first 3 months as well. Because she needed somewhere to stay. So it's, I even though that is kind of strictly what it is, I don't think it is in our case. Would you agree?
Yeah, it's definitely, like we've already kind of mentioned a bit earlier about how we're both, although it's like mentor mentee, it's quite an equal sort of way of working together. Just I would say majority of that is just because of the different worlds that we've come from. So just because it's that lens and that lens, it doesn't mean that one is right and one's wrong. They're just two different perspectives and kite of knowledge that you can bring to fill up an even bigger kite.
I guess sort of structural stuff, business stuff, I pass on to Rickylee. That's where my skill set is, money, budgets, stuff like that. But what she gives back to me is the tikanga side, like I guess the reo, and just lots of, I guess, I feel like it's like a 50-50 thing.
And I think that's, it wasn't necessarily 100% going to be that way, but because of us working together, the projects and the talents that we had attracted because of our working relationship and the company that we were running together was people just wanted to work with us, and that meant that I came more into those kaupapa in terms of setting up relationships, me going to visit other marae, other iwi, all of those types of processes ended up being vital.
And that's her role,
and
she leads that. whereas I'll lead all of the sort of back end stuff. But yeah.
It's like opening the gates.
Yeah.
And then we can get in with more of that mahi. And you know, like I'm just bringing you stuff that I've been brought up with and that I've learned from kura, and I'm always learning every day as well in that world. But what I could just, you know, offer to the company just from my upbringing was how we were able to begin many development processes for our projects. And that's even with some of our team that stay in Australia. We had a couple of members that started addressing all of us in te reo and things like that, and they're just Australian. You know, we're all like, wow, wicked. Wow, love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's yeah, I guess it's, yeah, the combo, and then what we attracted, and then what we've gone
giving out.
Yeah, what
well.
we, yeah, it's kind of like a 360 thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and bringing your cultural backgrounds together into the space.
Yeah, and so many similarities too.
Yeah. So, Nick, I wanted to ask you about this issue or this question of working with people from other cultures or life experiences or backgrounds, because you've mentored a number of people now that are not strictly white men. They're not white men at all. They're Ness and they're Rosie and they're Mickey Mangasiva, who's a big Samoan guy. What would you say? What do you have to think about when you're working with somebody from another background or another culture? How do you approach those relationships?
Well, yeah, I mean, ironically, I went to the same school as the Magasivas, and it was a large Pacific Island and Maori, school, and I was in a minority there. So I'm really glad I had that as part of my culture. And I grew up. I grew up in a world in Wellington where there is theatre and there are people of different nationalities. There are people of different genders, different identifying, different way. And and of course, being in Wellington, Toifakari's there, so there's a big showing of different cultures and our own Indigenous cultures as well. And so the one thing I think was really important was I never shut myself off from that. And it was just normal. It was a normal way of life, to hang out. It wasn't, there's no differences, I guess. But there's always going to be differences because I wear this face, which sometimes is the face of the enemy. But in dealing with someone who's got, who's from a different, let's just sum it all up as a different culture to this. It's really easy. It's really easy because we all speak the same language, which is the language of storytelling. And I don't care what part of the world you come from or what your background is, stories do one thing: they move us. Okay. And if you know when someone's writing a story that is fraudulent or telling a story that is fraudulent because you are not moved by it. Okay. And that's the common ground I find. And it's the common ground we all find. And look, it's not just about the writing. Storytelling is also present in the filmmaking process. Whether you're in the props department or whether you're freaking catering, we're all there to tell the same story. The story we're all agreed on. And storytelling is a universal language, and it is a language that doesn't know any boundaries and has no bias, and it should not have any bias anyway, and it should be inclusive. Storytelling is freaking inclusive by its real nature, because if I'm telling a story that is not inclusive, I don't have a fucking audience, do I? And that's the thing. I've never had any problem with working with anybody really, because, well, I've had problems working with people because I don't like them, but that's not that's about other things. But we're all telling a story, and that's where we live. and that's where we live. And if we can meet there, if you walk in, I'll walk into your space and say, I'm here to tell a story, and you say, yep, I want to tell a story, then we're good. We're good.
So we're talking about mentoring relationships here that do work. You guys all clearly like each other and get on and have had a productive relationship. Have any of you been in a mentoring situation that didn't work? Or have you encountered challenges? I mean, I don't want it to all sort of look like it's all a bed of roses, because I know it sometimes isn't. So anybody want to be brave and talk about what might not work in a mentor-mentee relationship?
I'm going to go back to what I said before. If I'm in a mentor situation and I'm a mentor telling someone this is the way it must be done, you're in the wrong space, man, because you need to work together. You work together for the best results. You'd agree with that, eh, Rosie? You know, we got our best results from working together, not from me barking orders at her. And I think it, you know, there are examples of when it hasn't worked, but the reason it doesn't work is if you don't work together. Simple as that. I don't know. How do you guys feel about that?
Yeah, definitely. I've definitely had relationships with, working relationships with older filmmakers or a different generation of filmmakers. I guess the same in like the theatre space as well when I was playwriting. I had relationships that worked really, really well when I was brand new at something. But then as I developed a little bit of more of my own voice or more of my own style, the relationship stopped working as well. And we just had to wrap it up really. And I think it did come back down to that, Nick, which was that not always people want to converse with you in a duality, which is totally, I totally understand why some people would feel that way. But I think that's one of the reasons why those kinds of mentorships have a season, because once you do start, wanting to have a bit more of a conversation rather than a monologue, maybe it didn't work as well. So I think it is down to the duality and it being a conversation and it being a back and forth. Yeah,
Absolutely.
And I think, Nick, you had said earlier that sometimes people don't want to listen. If you've got a mentee who's not interested in taking it on board.
Yeah, I've been in those situations, and you're not getting the best from me if you're not going to listen to what I've got to say. You might think it's rubbish, but I tell you what, it's going to help you. Promise you, because the thing is, I've been there. And whenever I talk to people, it's not stuff I've learned in a book. It's stuff I've learned from being on the ground, being kicked and getting back up again, not just in relationships, but in terms of storytelling. I've been there and I've made those mistakes and I've made them for you. My mentor, the person I'm mentoring, mentee. Never sounds right, mentee.
It doesn't, does it?
No, it sounds like something out of the ocean or something.
Or like a dental procedure or something.
Yeah.
It sounds like a moment you've had. Oh, I had a complete mentee last night.
Yeah, well, a lot of my friends describe mental breakdowns as mentee bays.
I was just about to say that. Really?
Yeah, just like, a bit of a mentee bee, but I'm back. So I think it just makes me think of having a bit of a mentee bee.
Well, I mean,
it's cleansing. A good mentee bee is very cleansing.
Well, you did have to work with me for quite a while. So, yeah.
So Ness is reminding me that we're going to open this up for questions. So if anybody's out there going, God, that woman's just not asking the right questions. This is just so boring. Let's get to the point. Or, there's just something you want to chat about with these guys, please shout out and let us have your questions. I think we're looking here at the chat and Ness may have some other questions. Jump in.
Yeah, just before we jump into the questions, because I think some questions might pop up from this, I'm just going to give and it is a very brief overview of some of the opportunities that exist for mentoring in the sector. So The other thing to note is that this session has been recorded and will be going up online, and along with that recording I'll post all the links to all of these opportunities so that people can follow them up later. But first up, so panelists, just relax for a second while I run through these. From the Film Commission has got some great opportunities for mentorship. Under their on-the-job development, this includes internships, mentorships, and professional placement. So the mentorship has a grant of up to $10,000 available, which is used to pay the mentor and to cover any expenses related to the mentorships. This is quite a bespoke form of support. It's designed for mid-career filmmakers. Each mentorship is tailored to the needs of the mentee. I feel like that's one that a lot of people don't know about. I believe that can happen at any stage throughout the year. I have Jude standing by, so we might clarify that, Jude. And then they also have the annual gender scholarship, which since 2015, the Film Commission's awarded an annual scholarship to female filmmakers in areas of the industry where female participation has historically been low. Interestingly, I recently looked at the statistics around the changes specifically for gender from Film Commission funding, and Film Commission is doing a great job at improving some of the statistics that were pretty dire a while ago, partly through this sort of scholarship. So the 2022 Gender Scholarship had a focus on wahine Māori looking to produce drama. Some really fantastic applicants have received that this year. The scholarship is a $15,000 grant. The Film Commission award 2 grants in total, and then those recipients are also matched with mentors to support their development through the duration of the scholarship. So it's a great opportunity. The one that Rosie and I have both connected with Nick over, which is the Hunga Taunaki Rorohiko, the online membership program. So this is writers focused on learning, project and career development for writers who are at that mid-career stage. The program includes a grant of $3,000 for the mentee, plus payment for the mentor's time, plus 10 one-hour one-on-one sessions with your established mentors. Meant to be online. Nick and I actually live pretty handy, so we managed to enjoy a few of those in person, which was pretty great. But basically it's support from a mentor to progress the mentee's development. As Rosie's talked about, it's the snowball, right, Rosie? It helps you get some momentum there. There's also from the Film Commission the Tōtoko Tangata, the Māori Talent Development Fund. So this has 3 different areas, part of which includes the Māori mentoring and support through the Tuakana Teina, which again is mid-career and established key creatives working and sharing their expertise with Māori talent who are looking to develop and enhance their skills. That's the sort of individual mentorship from the Film Commission. There's also through the Strategic Training Fund. So this is the organisations like SPADA, the guilds, the PASCs pieces, etc., to deliver programs that are aimed at above the line roles, the producers, directors, actors, writers, and can include mentoring programs. This also, I believe, Jude, again, maybe a little note that you might want to clarify. I think organisations, established companies within the sector may also be able to apply to run programs, but it really is not so much that one-on-one personal, but a bigger organisational approach for there. The Film Commission say on the website that they're very keen to receive programs of training that are available across the country to meet needs of those from various regions and demographics, and are committed to providing opportunities for tangata whenua and those from diverse and or underrepresented communities. So that's from the Film Commission. NZ On Air supports the guilds and organisations to run mentorship, of which, if you're connected with any of your guilds and organisational groups, you'll often see opportunities. Same with, I believe, with Te Mangai Pāho, Te Puni Kōkiri, who you accessed, Sharlene. They are not specifically screen-based, but I believe would that have been through the education and employment? Yeah. So that link.
And we were the first ones.
Yeah, cool. So we might get you just to touch on that a little bit after I've finished as well, just in terms of what that was like. because wherever we're all dog fans here, but that was a good one. Wherever possible, we can bring opportunities to upskill and support our screen practitioners from outside screen money is really fantastic, because again, it gives us the opportunities to grow. So it's great to know about those initiatives. There's also some programs like Film Up Mentorship Program, which is a 6-month professional development program for writers, directors and producers. Script to Screen run that with support from the New Zealand Film Commission. 8 filmmakers empowers them to reach the next stage of their film career. Script to Screen also runs South Shorts, which is a 6-month mentorship scheme which supports new and emerging screenwriters from South Auckland to community to develop their short films, and Loading Docs, which supports new and emerging documentary makers to create compelling contemporary short form documentary. So as part of the Loading Docs, they offer mentorship throughout the year for the project. I will put links to these. I know there's probably some others that I've missed. If so, chuck them in the chat and we'll share them as well. And I will put these links. Jude, do you want to, I'll just elevate you to a panelist just for a couple of minutes just to talk about, I guess, those questions, those 2 questions that I had, and if there's anything else that you think we need to just drop in there about. Cool. So Jude's just going to be jumping in there for a second.
Kia ora. Hello, all you lovely people. It's lovely to hear everybody talking so fondly of mentoring. It's definitely the most important thing I think that we actually do at the Commission in talent development. That support, just to answer some of those questions, so that support is something that if there's anything that has to be dropped, mentoring is the thing that stays. So with Fresh Shorts, when we have mentoring within our Fresh Shorts program as well. I've got 6 weeks mentoring there. Outlook for Sunday also have a mentoring program, which we also support, and we get approached. I know the spin-off are looking for mentoring support as well for documentary makers. So it's recognised as something that's really important. A couple of things. So from 2020 to 2021 or 2019, we ran that program that Nick's been across all programs because he loves it so much, but also because he's a comedy writer as well, and we're really wanting to encourage comedy writing. And we also, I got feedback from the mentors about the support of writers. Like it's a specific space where lots of times people go to workshops, and they get lots of input, and then they're on their own, and that lonely place of writing and trying to figure things out. That's where we saw there was a missing. So that's why it's been more and more focused. But that was funded through the COVID capability funding for those 3 years. However, as you've indicated, Ness, that has actually inspired us to include that in our kind of regular on-the-job development. And one of the things that's important to know too, that if filmmakers are underrepresented in those above the line roles, we will look at not just mid-career. So do inquire if you're an emerging filmmaker and you're from an underrepresented filmmaking community, please drop us a line, and I'm jude@nzfilm.co.nz, and inquire about that. The other thing about the gender scholarship, it changes year to year, and it's actually up to the patrons to decide, but generally it has a mentoring element to it, and so that's well worth always checking in about. And you're right, the Strategic Training Fund is focused on above the line, and there is a lot of, like, there's the incubator program, there's all sorts of stuff, there's for directors, but yeah, mentoring is definitely sort of like one of the number one things that I've come away from the last 7 years going, if we do nothing else, mentoring is the thing that we should do, because it raises your professional awareness, it's encouraging, it's mutual, and that's the thing that I really love hearing from you all, is that the mutuality about it, that everybody learns. And I think the thing particularly that I'm really keen on is not having it outcome focused, because career progression is, I've got my new metaphor, which I did send Ness, which is the spider web. And that is like, the spider can't see the web that they're spinning, but it's the sticky connections between all of the things that you're doing, and all of you, it's wonderful hearing Shar and Ricky talking about the all of the things you're teaching each other. Like, it's the connection of all of those things that create the progression, but it's never, you learn from making mistakes. And I liked hearing that too, Nick's sharing of, I'm sharing this thing that, I've learned painfully through my life so that you can do something different. But it is that it's not a straight line sort of element. And I think that's what's really powerful. But when we started that mentoring program, I really shat myself about, would the mentors actually get anything out of it? And that was what I was just so pleasantly surprised about, was how much they loved it. And I think what's really important too with mentoring is the match, and it's project, it's people kind of is one of the key elements of it, but also for the mentors, if you're listening in and you're thinking about being a mentor, it's really responding to the material, that it's the themes, the kinds of stories that you want to develop. And that the other thing that's really important, and Sharlene talked about this, about being in 100%. So for all the mentees, it's like you really have to go there, and this is an opportunity to have a guided, it's like, we call it untethering, where you've got this person and you're going to dive into those deep waters with kind of something, an attachment, and they're going to know that you either, it doesn't matter if you get there or you don't to the thing that you're aiming for. It's the journey. It's actually, that's, to me, it's paradoxical. If you just allow yourself to go into that journey, then you can actually go into the places that you can't reach on your own. And I think that's one of the benefits of mentoring, is it's journeying together.
I'm very buoyant. I'm very buoyant because I'm full of hot air. But it's, I just want to say, one of the things you said there is, it's not really goal focused thing, but ironically along the way, all of the people that I've worked with, we've found very specific goals that we've focused on, and we've got results, which is the best way to go in, because there's no pressure. Well, but somewhere along the way, we find what we need, and sometimes that changes. And Jude, I think that is the real triumph of the program as you've set it up, is that, and that's why both the people who are the mentors on it and the people who are the mentee bees on it are, how we're all getting something from it,
Yeah. I mean, the thing is that because we're so goal oriented, like there's that outcome focus with everything, just all of your applications are outcome focused. And I don't necessarily, you do learn, but actually I think there needs to be safe places where it's not outcome focused. It's about getting lost, because, particularly for writers, that is the place where all the juice is, that's where you really, really learn. But I think that's in career progression. It's when it doesn't go right, that's where you really learn and kind of go, oh, okay, I need to go over here rather than here, and we need to risk and be able to fail with support. I think that's a really important element of career progression,
It is. And that's just to know that you're going to continue that program is on that score is fantastic. To have that support ongoing beyond COVID is really fantastic. Thank you so much, Jude. I popped your email and stuff in the chat just so people can contact you. Thank you for making yourself available for us, which is cool. And Karin, I think from here you will we'll open up for questions. So if there's questions, I know you've got one or two that you want to jump in on that are already there. Anyone else, please put your questions into the chat. Thank you.
Look, big thanks to Jude and the Film Commission for and the Talent Development Department in particular, who really do support development of talent in this country. So big ups to them for connecting people and providing them money. I mean, that's kind of huge, isn't it? To have a little bit of money, a little bit of funding to, you know, to do that work. There's a question here from Gary Scott, who's actually asking the question that I was going to ask you guys next. He wants to know, what do they actually have as a process for working together? Is it structured formally into a number of meetings, or do they have areas of learning where the mentors set tasks? How often do they have feedback or feed forward sessions, or is it just whatever you feel? So I think let's start with Nick and Rosie, because you were working under the Film Commission's online mentoring. What were did you have rules and structures? Did you chuck them out the window? How did all of that sort of go, the structure of the program?
We had 10 sessions together, and I said to Rosie, how do you want to use them? And that was pretty much it. And so is that your remembering of it, Rosie?
Yeah. And we did something I'd never done before, which is kind of went micro in order to go macro. I usually, start from the outer layer of the onion and then get like more and more micro. But Nick had the good idea to pick a really, really important scene and to write that scene together or work on it together, and then hopefully it'll tell us more about the rest of the film, which is not something I had done before. And that's why I wanted to do the mentorship. I wanted to try things I'd never done before. So we worked on a really big, important scene together. For the last kind of few weeks, and before that we've been working on character bios, and so I think I would write, I would do a bunch of writing, send it to him 48 hours before our meeting, and then we'd meet and discuss it, and then I get a new task. And the first few weeks it was character bios and outlines and things like that, and then when Nick had the good idea to focus in on one really important scene, we just tore that scene apart for weeks. Can
I just say,
awesome.
nowhere in this process did I ever open up Rosie's script and write anything. I didn't. It was all her doing all of that. And then I think towards the end of the process, Rosie was picking up my dry cleaning. No, but it was really, it sounds crazy, but we went really small on the scene because we found out what Rosie wanted to do. I mean, what you wanted to work on. And as a result, I saw you change, like it was incredible to see the change. I saw a scene that was a sketch become like a really emotional, moving scene that was really fucking funny.
Right. So
that's how we did it.
So it sounds like you guys really dug into some specifics, but didn't just sit there and talk about the process of writing. You actually did the work of writing as part of that mentorship.
But then it's totally different with other people, other mentees. It's been totally different. In fact, one mentee that I've worked with, we got a whole new feature script out of it, from beginning to end. So it's what you want to do with it.
Yeah. And Shah, and Ricky and Shah, did you guys have a sort of formal structure? You would have had to for the TPK money, right?
No, not really. It was pretty organic. But however, what we did, which I don't think is a normal process, but as Ricky said, I put her in our commercials company, because making a commercial when you're going into filmmaking is a really good way of speeding the process up, to look at everything, I guess you can practice filmmaking in a very short amount of time, whereas with our television and films it's years. But we can, and so what I did is put her on a commercial to see the process of writing, pre-production, production, and then post-production, but she could do it in 5-6 weeks. So I don't think that necessarily happens anywhere else. But for me, it was a really good way of throwing her into the deep end to show her each different element of producing. And
for me, to get a grasp,
which is very different in film and television. But at least you get to sort of practice your craft in a practical sense and in a really short amount of time. And then as for us at Switch Up and Greenville, we're just really, really organic and we have no structure. I think what happens is we work on projects together and we do everything together. And that's, and actually, and I'm chucking you in it quite a bit at the moment, aren't I? With post and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, well, you answer the questions, you do it. So everything depends on the project.
But again, it's all quite specific tasks, and you're not just sitting around talking about the process, you're actually doing it.
No, practical is best, I find.
Yeah, we pretty much talk every morning at a certain time, and we go over like our work of all of the tasks for our different projects, high priority, jobs to get done, and we'll just kind of work together to tick them off. And we're just really busy at the moment, so I'm having to kind of take more things on by myself. So this year has been like a whole nother level up for me in terms of this whole mentor kind of thing.
Chuck you off the deep end. We've got another question here for Shara and Nick about if anyone is out there thinking about mentoring. Why should experienced people mentor? I think we sort of covered that a bit before, but also, do you think there are people who are better at mentoring, and are there some people who shouldn't mentor? Like, I guess we're asking what the characteristics of a good mentor are. Thoughts on that?
I'm looking at Nick to see if he's going to say something.
Unmute yourself, aren't I? No, there are. I think it's the same thing. Look, it's a conversation. Let's just remember it's a conversation. And we all know when you're sitting in a conversation and someone is waiting for their turn to talk, rather than make it a conversation, make it just a monologue. That's what it has to be. It has to be a dialogue. I mean, that's it really. And if you're not prepared to enter into a dialogue, then maybe mentoring isn't for you. Yeah.
Yes. So if you're a pompous, self-important blowhard, then don't mentor.
Damn it.
Yes.
Well, I'm the exception that proves the rule.
You both got to want the same thing, essentially, is to achieve something together, whatever that is. And it helps that you actually do believe in each other at start, because you will know if you can sort of, although I guess some people can kind of start, and then I haven't really done this very much, not as much as you, Nick, so I'm a newbie.
Well, it looks like you're doing a good job.
Yeah, so there's a generosity and goodwill going in as well.
Yeah,
it sounds like. So here's an anonymous attendee has asked, this is a really interesting one. It's the question about how would you go about continuing the relationship. So, and they're asking, rather than it just lasting a season, or, say the 10 sessions from the film commission, or say the show you're working on finishes up, there's the evident gratitude as a mentee for the opportunities and guidance, but also the tall poppy kind of whakama thing, the fear that you're asking too much of a mentor, or I suppose bugging them. So this person's keen to hear from everybody, but especially the writers. Obviously, Rickylee, you're continuing a relationship with Shar. Rosie, did you feel like you could keep on ringing up Nick, or having a coffee or having a chat? How do you sort of approach that? Or maybe just wanted to get rid of the old guy, I don't know.
I mean, you just you have to be really vulnerable. I guess that's what it's like being an emerging filmmaker, full stop, is that you just have to be so comfortable with rejection. And you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
But my door's always open to you, Rosie.
And so with Nick,
we do chat.
I mean, Nick is someone who, does really enjoy mentoring people, and we have a natural rapport. That means we end up talking a lot anyway about lots of stuff, which is great. And if I ever message him about anything, he'll always respond, which is great. But I have had situations where I thought maybe I'd be able to call someone up and ask them, and they don't pick up, or they never email back, or they never text back. And that's, of course, like, that's all good. That's all good. But you have to be brave enough to see if they will. You got to send the text saying, is it okay if I call you sometime and ask you about this problem I'm having, or whatever it is. You just have to be vulnerable to see if they want to be that person. And if not, all good. It's better to know early. Nick is one of those people who is really interested in mentoring writers, even outside of organized structure, which is amazing. So I'm really lucky that he's always keen.
Don't everybody come at me now. I am busy. I'm very busy. But in terms of the people that I've worked with, Rosie knows she can pick up the phone. Ness has picked up the phone. We've talked before, and they have ongoing projects that they know I'm around for. And a recent one that I've been working on with Mickey, we will probably continue the relationship. I will probably be the script editor on his feature. So that's how it keeps going.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I would say from my own perspective too, that I think people will be honest. I mean, it sounds like some people have kind of ghosted you a bit, Rosie, but I think, but also people will say, look, I'm sorry, I'm just too busy right now to be able to do that, which, I've certainly been in that position, but I do try to be upfront with people about it's not, sorry, but I'm just, having a nervous breakdown. I'm having a Mentee bee.
Having a Mentee bee right now.
Can't quite cope with it.
When I'm Mentee bee.
Yeah, but otherwise I've found people will be quite generous with their time. So yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, I think you don't know until you try, just ask the question.
But give it a go. You might be surprised, eh?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What about you, Shar? Do you get people ringing you up or texting you or messaging you going, can I pick your brain for wisdom?
I do, and I always make an effort to answer because I think it's really important, and it's good manners, actually. That's essentially it. Is if someone's actually bothered to ask you, then you should respond.
Yep.
Can't necessarily solve everyone's problems, but we can certainly, make an effort.
Yeah, and look, if they don't get back to you, then you probably don't want them as a mentor anyway, if they're going to be like that. So yeah, Nick, did you have a thought on that?
No, I'm just saying, like just getting back to someone is I try to get back to everybody that does get in contact with me, and those that I can help, I will. But generally, sometimes there are times when I'm just too busy, and I will say that I'm too busy, or I'll be upfront and say this project is not for me. I have to be truthful about it.
Yeah. It's just like any other relationship. You just have to communicate.
Yeah, and like any other relationships and like dating or marriage, some are not going to work. Some will work, some won't work. So for those out there who are thinking about being a mentor or being a mentee, we've got to find a better word than that, haven't we? Cadet,
Padawan.
The Padawan, yeah. You've got to, if it doesn't work, then keep trying, because eventually you will find that person that, is willing to go the extra mile and support you. And as you say, it's a two-way street. It's amazing what you learn from the people that you're mentoring. So Ness, we've got, I don't think there are any more questions here. I'm loath to get into another whole line of questioning, because I know we've got to wrap up, and some people have to go practice their awesome networking skills downtown.
Yeah, absolutely. It's probably it is tricky, isn't it? One more question could lead to a whole bunch more time. But I think actually that's a great place to land in terms of, we've run a few of these masterclass sessions now. And almost every time it's come down to that communication and expectation, and like you say, Rosie, being vulnerable enough to ask and be okay if it's a no, because there might be a million reasons for that, or all that kind of stuff. But I just want to sort of jump in and thank each of you for sharing your experiences and some really great thoughts in terms of how a mentorship can operate really well, along with some kind of considerations for people if they're thinking about being a mentor or applying for one of the menteeships, of which we'll find another name. I can also suggest grasshopper. I think it just depends on your film genre, and
I was thinking grasshopper.
You just choose the word that fits in there for you, right? A really fantastic session. Lots to kind of think about in terms of what sort of opportunities might work best for someone. There's, the career mentorships, I think, are probably a little bit trickier to find over that longer span. And, Shar and Rickylee, obviously that's working super well for you. And hopefully there are other either producers or production companies and stuff out there who are in a position to do the same sort of, long-term mentorship, the project-based or the initiative-based ones for Nick and Rosie. There's so much value to be had. And Nick, it's great to hear that value is on both sides as well, that it's not just, one side. And I think that's always the way in life, but I think sometimes we can look at, that balance of power or whatever in the sector and have an idea that it's only one-way traffic when it's not. So thank you all for sharing all your experiences, and thanks to all the attendees who have come in and asked some questions. Most importantly, below all of that, thanks to all the funders and organisations offering up opportunities for mentorships in our sector, because there is no sort of direct path for anyone, whether it's a writer, a director, producer. There's so many ways into and through the sector. And so things like mentorships provide a really fantastic opportunity for talent to develop and for people's careers to go in different directions or build some momentum. So thanks to everyone for that. I think with that in mind, Nick, Rosie, Sharlene, Rickylee, thank you so much for being part of the discussion. Karin, thank you for hosting it so beautifully. Otherwise, I will leave you all to your evenings and your networking opportunities.
Peace out.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes, thanks everybody. Me taki mata. Thank you so much, and keeping up the good work.
Thanks, Karin. Thank you, Ness.
Everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks so much.
Enjoy that networking.